Well, hello everyone. I am Phil. I will present in front of you guys today with my face on the camera just to make things a little bit more normal. Remember that I am a normal human being, and I will act today as kind of a post-mortem analysis of our experience into trying to reform governance in the cosmos in general, but more specifically today, we're going to talk about our experience with the Evmos chain. And some of the things that we're going to be saying today is not going to be pleasant to some of the participants in that process, but we'll try to remain as objective as possible. So first things first, as a quick introduction, there's been a tremendous lot of personal attacks, which are disgusting to say the least. So I'll try to summarize the essentials about that, okay? As a personal human being, I deserve respect, nothing more than anyone else on that fucking planet. Second thing, I've been called an absolute scam or whatever it is. So I'll just do a TLDR basic on who I am and why do I stand to talk in that matter, how legitimate I could be. Okay, so without going into too many details, I'll just explain the necessary stuff in here. I've been 10 years into trading, come absolutely out of nowhere, meaning that I had something like $10,000 when I started trading, and today I'm like one more than 100x. So this is pretty much something that very few people can achieve. So I would like to say I'm not the best trader out there, but I'm good enough to at least know how market forces behave. So that's really one thing to say. Someone who's just making 100x out of 100,000 trades is not someone who's just, I don't know, cheating, stealing, or whatever it is. I've never used leverage. I just think I found something that works well in the market. So that's the part A of what my major occupation is. This is where I get my money from, and therefore that's the reason why I have the luxury to have some higher standards of ethics, because no one can buy me, because I have enough money to do and sustain my own life. So this is basically the way it is. That's a standard revenue stream to explain how important my vision on this ecosystem is, because no one can buy me. So that's really the first thing, independence. I've seen a lot of people in that mess kind of just talking. Well, at some point, I question the legitimacy of some of them, though I will speak about that more in greater detail later. So that's the first part, our legitimacy as being fully independent, absolutely unfunded or self-funded, call it that way, kind of initiative. Second thing, like I said, I have a bit of experience in the markets. I know how market forces behave, and I'm pretty good at understanding complex models. So that is just on a personal level. I am born that way. I haven't chosen that. This is both a blessing and a curse. But to make the TLDR in here, I just have what is called a corpus callosum, which is just no more than a part of your brain, which is connecting tissues of different portions of the brain, which are severely much more developed in my brain. So basically, I can connect complex stuff much more easily than the normal human being. The blessing is cool. The curse is that basically short-term memory is seriously deteriorated about that. So yeah, like I said, I have some functionalities that differ from some other human beings that give some advantages and disadvantages. The thing is that, well, I'm very good at crafting complex stuff, at understanding how this thing goes and to map it around in my head. So this is basically, I have visual map of things. I can put them into space very easily, just like synesthesia means that some people can have a taste of music or whatever thing that is. So basically, I can craft complex system in my head and build it logically just like a big map in 3D. So that helps me understanding naturally complex system much better than the average folks. So that doesn't make me a genius. Like I said, there are pros and cons with that system. That just means when it comes to complex systems, I'm very good and far above average doing it. So that's the second stuff in terms of the legitimacy that I have talking in front of you guys today. All right, then the third thing that kind of give me a bit of legitimacy to talk about DAO is that on some other parts of my work, and I do lots of things, I have been running a community for more than 5 years now without a single dollar in the system. This community is more than 10,000 people in Discord and more than 27,000 in a YouTube channel who has never spent a single dollar in making any types of commercial communications. So this is really the thing that is. I know how complex it is to run communities. I've seen all across the years all the complex bullshit there is, putting some moderators in place, having to come for the moderators who are too harsh on moderating, all of these things. I came through this. So handling a community, I think I know a bit about that. I don't know certainly anything about the whole thing. No one does. No one knows. But if I had to just give you a bit explanation of why I am here and why I am legitimate to open my fucking mouth, is because I have knowledge in multiple of those sectors. I'm certainly not the most competent people out there in each and every one individual of these. Like I said, I'm not the best trader out there. I'm probably not the best community manager out there. I'm probably and certainly not any of the best in anything, but I'm pretty good at multiple things. So just for a second, I would like people to stop being ferocious and attacking me on a personal level. I know the shit I'm talking about, and I think you're worth listening. That's really the way it is. So that was part A, the personal attacks. God damn it. I've had them in my entire career on Twitter, the trolls and the like. I was never for a second expecting that in a governance channel with less than 50 people involved, I would have such a violent level of attack on a personal level. So at least that was to just clear that shit out. Okay, second thing now. Let's go back to the basics. Why did we create the Govmos experience? Because there's clearly a problem. It's not an Evmos-centric problem. It's a problem that has been at far greater detail everywhere. We've seen DAOs seriously pushing to structures themselves over the course of the latest 6 months. And like I said, I'm pretty good at making abstract model and complex stuff in my head. So I've seen the pattern. There's definitely a tremendous push toward more centralizing governance because, of course, having a decentralized governance is messy, complex, and definitely hard to achieve. So there's been push of some more mature DAOs to head into the direction in which basically they wanted to structure themselves. And there is a second type of push in which basically those complex systems tend to become too complex and people want to make them simple. And in that perspective, this is a push back into centralization. Though, to be honest, whatever happens in here at Evmos, as kind of, in my personal opinion, kind of more sounded heading into the wrong direction, which is basically, well, things are going to be complex, so rather like to make the architecture more simple. All right, so that was our assumption. It was like, okay, there is a push for centralization, so maybe we should at least try to get into that talk and offer some balanced powers. So that's basically the beginning of our initiative. It started pretty much a month ago when we've seen that mess with Cosmos 2.0 and the way this thing has been crafted. And I've been talking with some of the people who actually crafted that thing without giving any names. And they've been raising the concerns of centralization and how these papers will be done, have been done back then. And they've been pushed to the public without even a bit of community involvement in the process. So this is the backbone of our initiative back then. It started back then, and then came the Evmos mess. When I just get into Evmos, the first thing that I saw was that push for centralization. So that's the reason why, first of all, we didn't really care about Evmos in our initiative. We just had to do it because, to be honest, I think that it was worth giving it a try. So what we're going to be doing today is that post-mortem kind of analysis on Evmos, because yes, we have our concern as well in the Cosmos kind of forums, and we're going to put our initiative in hold until we assess all of the pieces that we've moved recently. But to be honest, on Evmos, the mess is so deep that I think we have more than enough information today to say that something is really, really, really going wrong, and that if it doesn't change, this thing is going to die. So that's really the way it is. Like I said, I've explained the legitimacy I have to speak. I don't know the future. I just say it is pretty damn concerning. And if we don't talk about it openly, and if we don't have an open, mature discussion, well, this is deemed to fail. Anyway, it's already headed into that direction, so we're just going to have to let it happen. All right? So now that we've set the grounds, it's about time to head into the specifics and details. So what we've offered is no more than a system that has been perceived by everyone in here as extremely complex. So I would like to be setting the ground basis in here. I'll put that video into pause and I'll bring up the data that we have put it on the table to explain how we come up with that conclusion. Like I said, once again, this is a model. It's not perfect. We were meant to discuss that model and fine-tune it with the community instead of facing harsh fucking personal reactions on a drastic level. I mean, basically, a few people have been coming up with decent kind of productive answers. Most of them have just been trolling level that I've rarely even seen in Twitter. So it's dangerous, folks. There's no one in these forums. I've made it very clear in a video back then, which was intentionally very violent, and I really really am sorry for this. That's the reason why we took down that video. It wasn't appropriate, but I think that I had to do it. Basically, send the bomb and to see how the pieces would move together. Though that's what we wanted. I did it on purpose. I know it would create some more emotional reactions back then. And then I came to the table with ideas. I never expected people to be fine with us and to be gentle with us because of what we've done previously. But the thing is that I was never expecting such a magnitude of hatred and personal attacks. That is the sign that there is a problem to me. Whoever is in that forum should be discussing, not just going with hatred and revenge. So there is a big problem. No one even cared about actually what we've posted. Just people came in and shitted on it. So that's the reality it is. So now let's take a moment to just take a moment to explain what that paper was made out of and what the ideas crafted in this was. Okay, 1 second now. All right, here we are. So that's basically this thing. First of all, you have to understand that this is not my job. I am not good at it. That's basically the best I could come up with in such a short notice. It's been built out of a work for a month or so. I've been working almost 16 hours a day. So basically waking up, turning on the computer, working on this thing for absolute all fucking day until I get exhausted enough to go back to sleep. So this is really the way it is. The reason why I've been pissed off no one and even dared caring about the details, put it into this, just, oh boy, it's too complicated, maybe we should do it this decentralized way. So this is utterly stupid, to be honest, but I would like to explain how deep we wanted that vision to be and the reason why we've got into so many details to let you understand that the system itself is pretty simple in its early stages. And sure thing, we could have put this thing in a much more understandable manner in this paper. Yes, and I'll say it once again, I'm not a good communicant. I don't know how to do these things. I'm not a perfect community manager and so on. I just tried to do the best I could with the limited amount of time that I had to spend for it. So here is the model in its end game. The reason why we've put that model of a liquid staking module and a treasury allocation module is a variable factor. That's basically just the nitty-gritty on how to put it into an actual system that works. This is one of many solutions. There are other ones, like for example, we could use the group module and create new groups in there, like the councils could be actually created by the groups module instead. So there are multiple architectural ways we could do this. That's for the tech, and instead of being boringly going into the details, I'll just move on. So the easiest way to let people understand was to use that liquid staking module and treasury allocation module, because in the end game of what we see as what a council should be, or multiple councils should be, the treasury allocation modules offer much more depth, but it is definitely not the V1 of that thing. It's like the V4 or 5. Until we get to that level of complexity, there's going to be many intermediate stages. Okay, so first of all, we offered the final end game so that people understood the depth of that model instead of just going easy with a simple solution of V1 and then build on that later. So yes, that system was complex to understand because, yep, we've brought a shitload of careful work in here to find a system that could scale. So what we've tried to introduce is the end game, not the step one. Step one was damn fucking easy. It was actually using liquid stake tokens or any other vote representative that is correlated to the token holder, which means the token becomes a voting power representation. While still having its own delegated value, you can do whatever the fuck you want with the token. And on a second stage, you can also participate in security. That means basically we're adding a governance layer on top of participating in security, and you can separate the two. That was just a standard model. You can just stake your tokens to a delegator, to a validator, while still being able to delegate your voting power to anyone else in a governing council. We also assess the fact that these governing councils can be many forms. So that's the reason why the next step of our research has come to understanding the mechanics of the supply. Though, if we have to create and map out the supply of whoever meant to be participating in that system, we need to create a list of whoever uses the tech we're actually talking about. And this is where I've seen a tremendous mistake in the existing DAO model, because basically when it comes to assessing blockchain governance, people have been coming across what's been existing so far, which is DAO governance of mostly protocol layer, which is basically how do we coordinate development on a protocol layer. It's basically definitely 100% different from what it is when it comes to architecturing on-chain and off-chain governance for a blockchain. The thing is, the ersatz of things that have been existing back then, and someone in the community actually has experience on Genesis DAO, the infamous DAO that's caused the fork of Ethereum Classic to Ethereum that we know today. But the thing is that, boy, these are two totally different things. Now we're operating in a proof-of-stake environment, which means governance can be assessed on-chain. We have instant finality, and we can do a lot more things with the Cosmos SDK than the rigidity that there was back then with the Ethereum virtual machine environment in its early stages. We're talking about something that is years old. So basically, things are definitely different. In terms of supply, the participants of these blockchains today in a proof-of-stake environment are fundamentally different than things that existed back then in proof-of-work networks. So in here, we have validators instead of miners. Okay, we still have developers. That's basically the way it is. It doesn't change too much. We still have somehow delegators, which is no more than token holders who hold more tokens than they need to actually use this software in the end. Though this is basically the way it is. We have the end user, which is someone who has enough gas fee to pay for whatever he's going to do on the network. You've got delegators who are anyone else who has more than that and who's basically acting more like an investor. Though the number one assessment we made, like I said, I am a trader, so I'm pretty good at at balancing stuff, at finding supply and demand offsets and defining the balance in between the two. So, well, I'm pretty good at doing these things. I have a lot of experience to do this. And the first thing I can see, and I told you, or at least I tried to express that as explicitly as possible, is that there is a severe imbalance in the way governance is structured in terms of supply. Because normally we should have all these people at the table. Basically, a truly decentralized run protocol or blockchain or whatever it is should just have every one of its constituents at a table and maintaining balance over time. So the thing is, well, there's a natural imbalance, and that's what we've tried to express in that figure number 1. So that's the thing. The Team N Foundation would just be a bunch of limited numbers of people who have high intent to participate in governance, historically speaking. Basically, we decentralize the protocol or app chain or whatever it is by decentralizing and allowing the lower layers to participate in governance. So basically today, we're at stage 1 of DAO because basically Team N Foundation and validators are the only fucking ones participating in governance. So the system we have now and the system that is trying to be put in place in the Cosmos ecosystem is just V1 of how governance in a blockchain infrastructure will be in the future. Because blockchains do have developers and delegators as major constituents, core constituents, and they're not sitting at the table today. So that is the first thing we've assessed in our research. This is absolutely not possible because it is only going to go one direction in the future. We're gonna have to include developers more and more, but most importantly, whoever forgets about the delegator makes a tremendous mistake. And that's what everyone is doing now. Like the delegators, well, no problem. We don't necessarily need to talk about them and so on. Well, like I said, if you want to have a truly decentralized run organization, not just one that pretends to be and actually turns out not to be at all, basically the one we have today, the Team N Foundation and the validators running everything, it is posing a centralization issue, meaning those two forces, whether they want it or not, are centralizing the system because they are few people doing a lot of things for a whole lot of other people which just can't. So that's the number 1 assessment that we wanted to express with that chart, is to let you understand that the more people that should still have an equal representation at the negotiation table are just not even there because these guys don't have time in the governance. So this is how, as a fucking trader, I know how to strike balance, and the only thing that I saw out there is that these two guys have to be put it down so that these two ones could be able to bring up into the table and emerge as a legitimate cohort. So this is the thing we have now. Now we have a huge foundation implication in governance. Of course, historical blockchain, when they launch, are fairly launched centralized by the T-Man Foundation until slowly but steadily, over the revolution process, they stand to include validators and developers and delegators in the end. Well, it's time to think about the next stage. We're really at T-Man Foundation. They don't want to let go. Validators have taken their grip as some of the blockchains are decentralized enough for big validators or lead validators to have a say at that table because they can censor the T-Man Foundation if they're headed into the wrong direction. Yes, that's good, but that still means we have two people at the table. The T-Man Foundation crafting everything and the validators kind of vetoing or help shifting Crafted's proposal. And that's it. That's the way it is today. That's the assessment I have made in the initial video that I've released. No one else is doing any fucking thing in the pre-proposal government system. The off-chain governance of these DAOs is nothing close to a DAO. It's a DAO of two cohorts, which is basically 10 people, 20 at best, deciding the fate of millions. It's not going to fucking work. And it doesn't take a PhD to say that. Any normally constituted human being should agree with me. And whoever doesn't, I have a serious questions of legitimacy and whatever the fuck happens in his brain. Because to be honest, anyone with at least 100 IQ should see that I am just fucking wrong with that assessment. It is just a pure mathematical and logical analysis of the supply. This imbalance of power, gosh, I'm not making it up. It exists. It's visible already. No delegators participate in governance, and developers barely have a say in this system because they're so overwhelmed by the power validators and foundations have. So if we want to have a fucking DAO where everyone talks, there's no other way but to bring down T-Man foundations against validators' power to let others bring up their say at the table. So yes, by the beginning of our initiatives, we knew we would face fierce competition from T-Man Foundation and validators who probably just didn't want to let go of the power they had so far. The fear of losing control is probably the most dangerous stuff that a human can be. And that's really, really what we faced in here. I think some of the harsh reactions we've seen from T-Man Foundation comes from this. I understand, guys, this is normal that you fear us. But there's no other way around. If you want a DAO, you need to have everything sitting at the table. Everyone, every supply participant in the governance in this process, whoever uses the blockchain one way or the other and who's willing to participate in the governance must have a say. Of course, there are still the cohorts of end users, which we've mentioned in here, but this one is so far off in eventually putting a grift in governance. Mostly these guys are users, and they don't have any interest in shaping governance. But maybe in the future there will be a fifth cohort at the table. But you have to understand that assumption that we've uncovered. This is the problem number one of DAO structuring today. DAO has to evolve. It just can't be run by Team Foundation and validators. It has to be a lot more people at the table. All right? It's essential for you to understand that thing. Then, what we have done in our modeling is to say that these councils that we intended to be at a minimum of 4, but there will be multiple of these, has just to be intermediary casters of votes to create kind of a representation system which has in itself a natural balance system of accountability, which is basically by using token collateralized votes that are delegated to people who basically are supposed to go to the negotiating table for you with a definite purpose, which means they are developers councils who are meant to defend the developers' income stream and to help them fund their operations or whatever. This is absolutely required. These guys are basically here to defend their grip on the market. They have an angle, a point of view, and they have to be defended as such. For developers, spending money in governance is hell of a mess. Most of these guys have to do what they do best, fucking coding. So there is no need for coders to spend endless amounts of time reading endlessly long proposal discussions and stuff like that, because they don't have time for it. We want devs to do what devs do, build stuff for the chain. So we need representatives for these guys. So they need to gather and regroup so that they can elect a representative which will talk and spend time in governance on their behalf. So doesn't that sound legitimate enough? We need that. We absolutely need that. Developers, if they don't have representative that handle all the complex paperwork that there is in governance, well, they don't have a say. They will be left just using the chain and not participating in governance, because participating in that complex ECP system that is said, we have to form a thing that way, and you have to do this, and then that, and we can veto you everywhere in the process. This is basically, you have to understand the amount of time and resources it takes to shape the governance of such a complex system. Though we need delegates for every cohort, and most importantly, we need more delegates for the lower cohorts in the systems that we've highlighted previously, because in order to naturally and organically rebalance this thing, we need people to support the ones that are less likely to do it themselves, aka the delegators and the devs, because delegators are delegating probably on multiple other chains, and even though they care about one chain, they just can't afford to do their own daytime considerate to this. Developers councils, like we said, they need representatives because they need to fucking build. They don't need to spend their entire day going into endless governance balancing stuff, even though this balancing stuff is necessary. So we need to have intermediaries in here. And that's our assessment. The final assessment we've made is that if we don't do this, the centralization of vote is just crazy. It's the way it is today. Basically, who votes today? The T-Man Foundation, who generally holds a significant portion of the supply, and they can decide how to orientate stuff. Normally, over time, they're supposed to let go of that grip so that this decentralization starts to ripple in through the system. They start to let go so that sooner or later, the validators and others start to take control of the chain, slowly but steadily. We're not talking about immediately releasing all the power. We're saying this is a gradient. It goes on over time. But we are far off now in the stage in which there is a problem, because we should include the remaining two cohorts. It is now the time to do it, and we don't. Why is that? Because there's natural resistance from the existing two cohorts who just don't want to let go. And yes, like I said, we were willing to put the shit on the table, even though we knew we would definitely not please a few people. We had to go straight forward and say there is a problem of centralization because some people want to hold a grip on the power they have and not letting others stand at the table. That is concerning, folks. And yes, we haven't changed a bit on that assessment. It is dangerous centralization kind of problem we have in here. These guys might have the best intent in their behavior or whatever, but they have to accept to let go some of that power so that others who have the fucking legitimacy to sit at the table to be there. Okay? That's the way it is. Now, finally, last but not least, our model says just one thing. Okay? And we haven't even got into how to put it into motion, slowly but steadily. But we wanted to see if the community at least agreed on that system, just to understand the nitty-gritty basics of it. The basics says we have a natural imbalance and we have to restore the natural balance into this, and that means the least represented people are probably going to be the one that will require as many councils, meaning representatives, as possible, so that, for example, assume I would likely be a delegate or council type of profile, and I definitely don't have to be the only one sitting at the table. I have my vision of things, and I hope there will be other delegators defending other angles, other points of views. They will probably be quite similar to mine, but they will have significant variance in here as well. So delegators' councils need to be a number of them. They don't have to be paid people. Like I am a fucking volunteer. and I know a lot about volunteering. If I just give you TLDR in here as well, every fucking Monday morning for more than 3 years, I've been volunteering to bring food to people who can't afford it in an association in France, and I intend to do it all along as long as I'll be able to. So that's the thing. Every Monday, every Tuesday, I put 3 hours to work for the community that I have in my Discord, taking courses for them, trying to teach them risk management for fucking free. Every Wednesday, I have to spare some time for family duties and dad work and all of these things. Okay? And just to be honest, I do work on some other stuff. Every Thursday, I take people to my fucking place, right here. Teach them for free. Though I think I know a bit about volunteering, I do this for years, and I intend to keep on doing it. So maybe I know a couple of things about how to volunteer stuff, okay? So please, I am willing to sit at that table unpaid, and I'm not even considering being paid later. I just think I have to be at that table because if I am not, this thing is heading straight into a wall. I want to be the first delegated council. I'll be willing to work for free, and I intend people to delegate their vote to me so that I can defend investors at the table. I hope there will be many others doing like me in the future. I also think user councils, which should have been updated into developer councils, they need to exist. They have to exist. People who build on the chain because they either build protocol layer stuff or any other core layer infrastructure stuff, they have to be represented. I'll give you just a basic example, the Lord and his team. Some people criticize them, but gosh, they've been working their asses off for this chain, haven't asked for a single dollar so far, and yet they are considered like parasites? I have to say it. This is dangerous to go that way. Pushing away delegators and developers is not the way for a chain to work. It is the natural current imbalance of these things that lead us into that direction. And if no one steps in to force that thing to rebalance, then who is going to do it? Do you really think the foundation is going to let go? Do you really think the validators are naturally going to let go with the power that they've been given? No, it's not. It's risky to let someone else enter the table, and I do understand that. That's the reason why we've said those 4 cohorts have to exist. Not because the first 2 don't work well, just because it's the way it's meant to be. There's no other way around. That's the natural pieces of stuff in which these things will evolve. You can fight against this. It will inevitably end up that way. That is what our job has been in here. Saying we need to orchestrate a transition out of foundation and validators running the whole thing in inner circles, and we need to bring up devs and delegators at the table. Why was that a better place doing it in Evmos? It's because Evmos is probably the most tragic stuff we've encountered in the entire Govmos. Yes, Cosmos Hub does have its own issues as well, but there are some deeper problems right in here at Evmos. I'm not even going to go down the teams, handling of funds, and the VCs metrics, the VCs going into the chain and stuff that is outrageous to say the least. And that's just the proof of the most tremendous mismanagement that I've encountered into a company like that. So this is absolutely horrific. And I'm not even going down these details, even though I have the legitimacy to do it. I've encountered businesses for 10 years now. I do trade them. I know how to find a good corporate structures against another that doesn't work. And there's definitely a shitload of problem that I would be able to legitimately talk about in here in Evmos. To be honest, in here, full disclosure, I actually tried to come up for this by offering services of free advisory for the Evmos team, and I've been turned down. No one's there listening out there. It's a dangerous fucking problem of inner circle people. And that's what we've raised in the first video. Surely we didn't necessarily take the appropriate amount of depth to do it correctly, but I'm doing it today. There is a serious problem in that chain. And that problem has only one way to solve itself, is to innovate DAO, not trying to copy kind of protocol layer type of stuff, but to understand that if the 4 people participating in that blockchain are not sitting at the table to make decisions, then those decisions are deemed to fail. Not because the people in power will make bad decisions today, but just because it's inevitably going to happen. It's just simple for any normal human being to understand that 4 people at a table with 4 different angles will always strike a better decision than just 2. It's easy to understand. The second thing that we said in this paper is that money is the only way to maintain over time that relationship based on the imbalance that we aforementioned. If we use community fund to incentivize foundation type councils, where there are the people who actually work their ass in governance already for a long time, then there is a big problem, because no one is going to pay me as a delegated council. No one will agree on that. No one will agree to pay developers for this. So either one council of each is paid or no one is. Or to be honest, only the persons who are represented by their delegates have to pay for it. I think the foundation councils are here to defend the team's and foundation's vision, the long-term goals, and the community spendings and all of these things, yes. I even allocated into that model the fact that if for whatever reason the foundation funds were to be diluted enough, then we could eventually use some of the community pooled fundings to fund this council if it lacks of funding over time. But I definitely stand for this. Foundation type councils, our 3 fellows, need to be paid by the fucking foundation and no one else. It's not community pool funding. It's not delegators founding. Delegators founding should be paid in delegators council if they think they have to be paid. And like I said, I think not a single delegated council member today, and I hope to be the first one of them, deemed to even ask a single dollar. I will work as a volunteer because I don't even think I could rationally ask for $1 of retributions. Probably developers councils will work for free as well in the beginning. The validators councils already do it because they have other income streams. They basically make profit with their validator stuff, so they can afford spending a bit of governance because the way the projects are headed is important to them, for those who care. But the foundations, god fucking damn it, they're already doing governance for a year or so. Since the chain exists, these guys have been shaping governance. It's time to let go. I'm not saying it's time to abandon ship. I'm not saying it's time to divide this council. I'm saying it's fucking time we stop asking for community funding. I think it's time for the foundation to pay for these guys. The foundation that's been selling for $27 million to a VC who don't give a fuck about this chain. So yes, I'm sorry, I'm freakingly pissed off now. We've did everything to try bringing that chain back on track by explaining the core issues there is in the governance architecture of that system. And no one dared fucking listen. We've been insulted. I have been insulted. And it's a fucking shame. I'm willing to work for free, to spend time that I don't have, to rebuild that fucking chain the way it's meant to be. And yet you just yell at me and spit to my face? I'm sorry to say that, folks. Yes, we terminate that thing. And we do that post-mortem video because I'm so damn pissed off with what I uncovered in those governance forums. In between trolls and people who are so blind to not even take the time to read between the lines and understand the depth of what we were willing to put in place. I've been working my ass on this for a month. So I think I deserve at least a little bit of respect. Just like any fucking human being that is willing to sit at a table for fucking free. You guys are pushing us out. I think it's tragedy. Whatever has happened throughout the latest few months is just a sign that this chain is going to zero if you don't do 180 degree off this. We won't sit at that table anymore unless we're asked to. And I think you should really think twice before doing this again. I hope you will find some other delegators council, some other stupid folks, dumb enough to go there and spend 1 month of work for free to try supporting councils and delegators or users council or developers council, or call them however you want, to try bringing some actual value to the table by trying to, yes, eventually limit a bit the Foundation's council's work. I'm not saying these guys are incompetent. I'm not saying these guys shouldn't be paid. I'm just said, if we want a sustainable system, we need to rebalance the powers. Otherwise, there will be no devs at the table, and there will certainly be no delegators at the table either. That doesn't mean the existing 2 cohorts will make bad decisions. That just means it's inevitably going to be less good than if we had 4 people doing those decisions. We need balance, folks. And if DAO wants to evolve, I've seen some people saying DAO needs to evolve. Well, that's the way it's meant to evolve. So it's thinking time now, brainstorming time, think tanking about DAO. Though try to be smart enough now to understand that protocol layer DAO and blockchain infrastructure DAO will have different architecture. When it comes to a blockchain, there are 4 participants and they all have to be at the table before we even dare calling that thing a DAO. Otherwise, all that we have is just no more than the Foundation councils accepting to include a bit of validators. I've seen no more than 4 or 5 validators participate in governance. Do you really think that this is a decentralized system? No, it's not. It's definitely not. You want to strike the best decisions? Have everyone at the table, and then we'll speak. That being said, I'm sorry I had to go through such rude words again. I wish it didn't have to go down that road. But that's the way it is. The crucial time we leave now is not the time to just fight against each other. It's the time to welcome new people at the table. Our offer was definitely nothing but trying to divide the existing councils. Our mission was to actually say there is a problem. This is the next step for governance. We need to get people involved, and in order to get them involved, we don't need a shady $gov token bullshit stuff. We just need to have them fully represented at the negotiation table. As the delegators don't have time to do it, you have not the power to say for them. Delegators should be represented by delegators' councils. People like me who have only one fucking purpose: defend the economic liabilities and reliabilities of projects in here. Is it a good dollar spent? Yes or no? I am very fucking competent at doing this. Though I think I have something to say at that table. Yet you just pushed me away like I was a jerk. So let me tell you one thing, because those I'm actually sending that message to will definitely recognize themselves. You are dangerous. I am not. I was just there to bring some valuable content on the table, and you called me dangerous. You are the ones who are dangerous. That's enough for today. See you guys.